Good evening, Dave, and everybody. It's great to be on here. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me just start here. So first off, Joel Grace with Reno Ice. Really appreciate you having me. Okay, great. So yes, so Reno Ice obviously really big in the hearts of a lot of winter sports enthusiasts here. Here in Northern Nevada. We're really excited to bring this to the community. So we started in February 2015 and we formed what is called the Greater Reno Community Ice Skating Association, which is a 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit. And the reason we did that was we had studied about I would say about 35 different ice arenas and rinks, community rinks around the country, and realized that the ones that were most successful were actually nonprofits. So we decided to head down that path just because we wanted to be able to accept donations and have community involvement, and it was the best situation for the organization. As far as the board formation, that was in March of 2015. We have been as high as 10 board members and as low as 4. Now that we have kind of moved into more operational planning, we have 4 board members and about 28 what we call advisory board members that are everybody from the community. That is, you know, everybody from the mayor to Commissioner Lucy to Senator Kiekeffer to very prominent business folks here in town. So we started in 2015, we negotiated a lease with the county for a $1 a year land lease for two 20-year consecutive periods so that we were able to show the donors that their dollars were safe. So to start, this was the overall plan that we went with, which is a 2-rink concept separated by a mezzanine deck on the second level. On the first level, we have the locker rooms and the bathrooms. There's been a few changes, but the bulk of it is still really intact. Obviously, when construction costs from 2015 to now have been significantly increased, so we had to pare down some of our items, but still at the same time keeping the bulk of what we were trying to provide for the community. So Rink 1 right here is phase 1 of the project, which is an 85 by 200 feet sheet of ice, which is the size of a National Hockey League sheet of ice. We have 6 locker rooms, technically 4 full-size locker rooms, 1 that is for referees specific, and then we have another co-ed locker room. So if we have a co-ed team, there is an additional locker room for boys and girls to be able to change. The bleacher system that you currently see on this plan here, which we'll get to some pictures here, that is all still in, but we are actively still fundraising to pay back the nonprofit loan. The way that our financing has been structured so far is we have received $5 million from a family, and then about another $1.5 million, $2 million from the community and other various different foundations, individual donors, families, et.cetera. So Rink 2 is currently in design, obviously with the caveat that we would be paying back the rest of the remaining balance that we received a generous, no interest nonprofit loan from a family as well. So we'll be paying that back hopefully here in the short term. So this just gives you kind of an idea of what the mezzanine area will look like. Obviously, this is the bleachers here to the top of the screen. This entire wall that goes along that adjoins the bleachers here will be glassed in with some sort of bar concept, and then probably 6 feet of glass, with the restaurant being on this would be considered the east side of the project. And plenty of open seating space. There's an elevator for ADA access and for obviously deliveries up to that second level there, and then a stairwell, of course, for fire access. When Rink 2 comes in, we will just pretty much mirror the two phases. Adding additional bleacher seating, probably not nearly as much as we have in 1. It was a lot more bleacher seating than I think that any of the board really thought was possible, but there will be an expansion to the mezzanine, and then of course the addition of locker rooms and additional mezzanine level as well. So where we started, this was it. Sagebrush and dirt, and where we are now is to this point right here. So really our final stages in the process, and I'm going to go into kind of this overall, the technology of the project, how the rink is kind of a living, breathing organism, and the benefits of what can be brought to the community. But ultimately, we are up. We are just waiting on our temporary certificate of occupancy from the city of Reno on the final sign-offs, which we are hoping, fingers crossed, will be this week for an opening next week. I'm not announcing an opening because we've announced openings and it hasn't panned out for us yet. So, but that is our goal. So kind of going through, this is giving you some different vantage points. This is actually from where the lobby sits. I think this picture was taken either through the glass or on the ice, but what you can see in this picture here is plenty of seating. The building occupancy is about a little over 900 people in the building in the current configuration, not including this second story mezzanine. This was that floor plan that I was just showing you that will have glass all the way along here. We're hoping to do that sometime after occupancy as a tenant improvement. Where you can see the bleachers come up over here. So the benefit of this, and a lot of the rinks on the East Coast and the Knights practice facility down in Vegas is done this way. But participants go under the bleachers to get into the locker rooms, and participants come up here, up this stairway here to get into the bleachers. So kind of a fun little thing for the kids is they get to come out of the tunnel with the music on, the lights on, have their names announced, and just make it quite an experience for boys and girls, which we're excited about. This ceiling and the lights that we have here, all the lights in the entire facility are LED lights. All of these can be shut off through an app on the phone. I have not gotten access from our GM. I think that's on purpose. But this scrim, this white scrim here on the roof was something we stole from the Knights. This lighting package that is in here is actually the same lighting contractor and package that the Golden Knights had. So it creates it's a very bright area. Every player or skater that's been in there just looking at the facility has been saying that that's one of the most impressive things in the facility, because anybody who's been to an indoor skating rink knows that lights are always an issue. One of the other things we did from a technology perspective were these low-hanging metal sheets right here. These are actually infrared heaters, so they only heat the body. They don't heat the area around the rink. We do have this. We are a nonprofit, before I make the statement and somebody telling me that we're pinching pennies. These are attached to a credit card machine that will be sitting right around here. So you swipe your credit card and for $5, you get an hour of heat in that section. So you'll make a lot of friends. This will be temperature controlled up in this environment here on the mezzanine level when that's fully built out. We formed a great partnership with Roundabout Catering with Colin Smith and his group. They are handling our concessions in the lobby to start, and then they will be working towards building this area out, obviously, once we understand traffic. As you'll notice here on the boards, we actually sold out this advertising in about 45 days. It was about $150,000 worth of advertising, and we just opened up the backside of the boards that are closed-in panels to allow for additional advertisers, and then scoreboard sponsorships, et cetera. So really relying on the community on these one-year contracts to kind of help keep the facility afloat, as well as to be able to pay back our nonprofit loan. So getting into the technology, so obviously it didn't start this way. It started with this. So this system that we got here, just to kind of tell you how worldly the project is. So the system that anybody will be skating on is actually been in the last 4 Olympics. So this grid system that you're looking at here comes from Germany. The board system itself comes from Finland. The header trench that I will show you here in a couple slides, that came from Poland, and then the ice plant itself shipped in on a skid from Nova Scotia. The interesting thing about this grid was 30 days before the Germans were to show up on site, we received an email at about 7 o'clock in the morning at our board meeting saying that the President of the United States would not allow them, a foreign contractor with due to COVID, to come into the country. So fortunately, Senator Cortez Masto and former Congressman John Porter helped us write letter after letter to get these guys in here and actually keep this somewhat on track, because they would not have been here until early February. So what you're looking at here, there's about 14 inches of stuff under this ground. The typical ice rink is done with what you would call a concrete floor, which means you lay down the pipe. It's one straight pipe going all the way through for 31 miles, and then you would pour concrete over that. The downside to that is, number one, you hope that your concrete pour is level. The other side of that is that if a pipe breaks, your saw cutting concrete having to repair means you have the ice out for a specific set of time. On a sand floor, you would lay that same pipe, you would put sand in, you would wet the sand, you would freeze the sand, level it, and then you paint the sand from there and then build your ice surface. So same thing, you've got to take the entire ice out to make any repairs. Just lots of problems that can happen. Both of those systems were more expensive than this system. This is the official ice system of USA Olympic curling. It's the only ice that they'll do competitions on because this system, a typical ice system, takes between 24 and 36 hours to come up to temperature. This system does it in about 3.5 hours, which allows us to make ice faster. And then hockey, figure skating, and curling are done at 3 different temperatures. So it allows us to raise temperature and decrease temperature based on the event. The other benefit of this system is you can see this grid, this honeycomb system. This was plastic pieces, and we'll give you kind of a full screen here so you can understand this dark gray shaded area here is when we started laying the pipe in. This grid was laid over about a week and a half, 2 week period by 10 volunteers a day. The community was very helpful in doing that. But you start at the center ice in a diamond and you start to move around the rink. The surface itself, as far as the outside of the rink, is all concrete, which was a very challenging process to work with SNC and United to make sure, because if these radiuses are off, your boards aren't sitting right. So every possible calculation was done, from hand measuring to getting surveyors out on this ice. But underneath this grid, we started off with paver locking sand. We rolled it, we tamped it, we surveyed probably 400 points. Want to give F3 a plug because they donated that service and it was lengthy. But once that was level, we laid down PVC piping, which is a heated floor. You're probably asking, why would you put heat under a giant ice cube? The purpose of that is that you don't want ice heaving. You don't want the ice heaving and lifting on you. So there's a heated floor under here. The interesting thing about the heated floor, we actually are exhausting the heat from our ice plant. It comes underground to where the heat locker is and through a manifold, and it's distributed out back through the grid system. Then over that, we put more paver locking sand, rolled it, then a vapor barrier, and then 4 inches of Kingspan insulation, then a membrane, then felt, and then this white grid that you see. So it's about 14 inches building this entire process up. So this just kind of let me back up one here. So this is our volunteers laying out this pipe. So this is 31 miles of pipe. The interesting thing about Germans is, number one, they only understand metric. So that was an interesting conversation trying to calculate a lot of this, but we got through it. But when they get here, they do not bring any tools with them, which was interesting. So they make their own tools. So this pipe gets laid down and it has to be locked into this grid because you don't want it lifting. There's not a lot of weight to the plastic. But the thing about this piping, let me just get to my next slide here. So first off, you can see how this grid's laid out in this diamond shape that we're talking about to make sure it's laid out properly. And for all of you people on Facebook that wanted us to keep this wall open because of the beautiful view of Mount Rose, ice and sun do not go well together. Excuse me. So this tubing, this is all the tubing that was laid in this ice. It's corrugated aluminum. So what it does is it allows the solution that goes through there to go in waves and kind of tumble instead of straight, because the coldest part of the pipe would be the center. So that was one of the reasons that we selected this system and researched this system, was just the constant temperature and not having soft spots in the ice. The other part with this tubing is that there's a crimping mechanism. So if we do blow a pipe, and you'll see later in a slide here, we can actually shut down one lever, thaw just that portion of the ice, make the repair, recrimp it, and we're off and running. These are all individual. There's 296 different pipes that are connections that go in. One is supply, one is return. But we can shut that off. We can actually pull the entire pipe out the length of the rink and put it back in. The other thing with this metal, the transfer of heat is so good that within 4 inches, you can space these out further apart because of how it's transferring heat or lack thereof. So it freezes a larger space off the pipe. So it keeps the ice consistent. So this is our condenser unit. unfortunately, I've been living this, or fortunately, I've been living this for 6 years, but some of this stuff may be boring, but I'm kind of going to geek out on you here a little bit. So this condenser unit here is all self-automated. So it decides on the fresh air that it's bringing in based on the temperature that the 13 sensors within the ice are actually sensing, the ambient temperature, the temperature in the ice, the humidity, et cetera. So there's only 5 and 10 power, or 5 and 10 horsepower motors that actually operate these, so you won't see them spinning all the time. So when you're in the ice rink, the ice plant's not on all the time. Once it comes to temperature, it shuts down and it kicks back on. Typically, our ice plant can do about 140 psi of ice. Once the system comes up to temperature, it only uses 40 of that, which means for rink 2, where the header trench that you'll be seeing here comes into play. We already have enough ice making equipment for rink 2, so that's another added benefit. So this here, so you can see our German friend here, who we spent a lot of time with. Once that grid was laid out, all these pipes before the boards go on are now connected. So you can see all the scrap metal that they have. They have to hand connect each one of these. They actually create the threading that goes into these little levers down here. You can see by the red ribbon here. But this is the benefit. You can shut that off if you have a problem. The other part to this system's been being used as far as the solution that runs through the pipes is what's called aqua ammonia. It's about the equivalent of 4 to 5 times Windex. Because everybody thinks ammonia and thinks about what's happened in the past. There's been leaks and issues and whatnot. When we were putting this in, we had a leak and there was no issue because it's eco-friendly. But the other part with it is that this system, they have not had to replace these pipes in 50 to 70 years in Europe. I do not know why we don't use it more here, but the corrosion on these pipes has still been untested in the European market. So that's the good news, and then the benefit, obviously, of how easy it is to repair if needed. So these are the pipes from Poland. These are the header trench pipes. You can see all the connections that kind of come in here. This trench, this is not, again, how you typically do an ice system. So we're breaking new ground here. This liner and this trench also acts as our drain. So if we bring the ice out for cleaning purposes or for whatever the case may be, we have the ability to just let the water run off into this trench and then exit the building without creating a swimming pool. You can tell how messy this gets. Some of our volunteers, we were having to switch out volunteers because dragging pipe for 31 miles is not fun for anybody. But after it gets over the edge here, it gets bent and connected down into this header trench here. So how does this get, my GM is going to kill me for the next picture, but how does this get connected? Well, this is the really technological tools of the Germans right here. So they come in, they go to Home Depot, they buy a piece of wood, and they build a skateboard. So one of the sets of skateboard wheels goes on the pipe, one goes to the one beside it that doesn't, and somebody sits on this and they push you with a 2x4. And that's how this gets locked in. And these guys are on contract for the Olympics, so kind of interesting. The header trench piping connects into this. This system here is 40% more efficient than any other system in the country. The other thing is that it's intelligent. So right now, my ice maker, who's an Olympic ice maker that moved here from Salt Lake City, who's doing a fantastic job with the facility, he actually gets alerts and has alarms and different switches that he can set on his phone and his computer. So if during the night the ice plant goes down, which did happen while we were making ice, and so I spent the night sleeping on the top of a nice aluminum bleacher because I was worried we were going to end up with a swimming pool the next day. But now this is all connected through the internet, and now he can get alerts on his phone. The other thing is the guys in Nova Scotia can check our system from Canada. And the same thing happens with the ice system with the sensors in the ice. The guys in Germany can be checking in on that system as well. And then, of course, our ice maker has that ability to see what's going on there. So this is already set up for 2 ice rinks. So it's 25,000 pounds when this was put in to get across that trench that I had shown you. And I wish I had the picture. I couldn't find it. It actually went across the trench on skateboards at 25,000 pounds. So it was logistically challenging, but very, very impressive. So after we got everything done, got all the boards up, you can see the bleachers are being done in the back here. It's literally having to just put about a 1/16 of an inch down every time you go out and just get above the grate. And we did that over about a 4 or 5 day period. This could go as fast as 24 hours, but if you really want good ice, you're trying to keep the oxygen out of the water. So the way you spray it, the hose nozzles that you get for this, and you're just going up and down and trying to just get the pipes, to get the water over the pipes so that you can start to get a surface. This is our Zamboni. This is probably the most, well, other people have this, but this is a very technologically advanced Zamboni. There's a little device that sits up here by the driver. This is our ice maker, Shane, right here. Right behind him, there's a device that when he hits a button, it raises, and it actually communicates with a device, a little Doppler device, for lack of a better word, that sits on the wall. And it sits there and spins, and it communicates through the internet and through Wi-Fi with the Zamboni. So it's called Level Ice. This is the top of the line Zamboni you can get. It's lithium ion. It's half the weight, roughly. I think it's about 4,500 pounds versus 7,500 to 8,000 pounds. Fortunately, the Joint Chiropractic stepped up and offered to pay for the Zamboni for advertising. And who are we to say no? So if you have any chiropractic needs, cheap plug, please use the Joint. So underneath this, in this front bucket here, this is where the snow comes up through here, shoots in here. So after people have been skating, takes all that snow that gets dumped into a pit that ultimately has a giant heater in it, melts and goes out to the sewer system. All of the new water sits in here. The new thing, or the newest piece that we added, was a reverse osmosis system for the water. So it takes everything out of the water except to make it pure. It's not even drinkable at that point. But you'll see when you come to the rink, you'll see how clear the lines are, and the quality of the ice is like glass. It's a little fun little blue thing here. This does all the kick plates and makes sure that all the edges are done well. And then there's a fast ice system that sits on the back of the Zamboni here that actually helps the ice freeze faster than a normal Zamboni. Actually, the rep from Zamboni was there today doing training with all of our Zam drivers, because this little device up here, although it looks like a radio, it's not. There's a lot of different functionality to this, but it's taking the artistic work of what a Zamboni driver used to be and turning a person into a driver and letting the machine do itself based off of the level ice system that sits on the wall here. Couple more pictures before we get to some questions. Apologies, there we go. So this was just us starting to, you can see some of the frozen pipes here, but we were starting to run 24-hour shifts with a few of us because we were getting antsy and tired of pushing back dates. But we probably had about 60 volunteers on this project of people some people took work off, some people did it on their day off, but everything from assembling benches to helping clean up to actually laying the rubber flooring that you'll see within the facility. And that's our newest, that is up and lit. All the signs are lit now. So we really are, our last piece to go in, which is due to COVID, has been on back order, but we're told is on a truck, is really the rubber flooring for the lobby. All of our counters are in, point of sale systems are in. And so we're kind of waiting on the city on the TCO here, and we'll be making an announcement here momentarily. So with that, I open it up to questions.
You see the time being split up between the various groups for using?
Well, so we're not real shy in saying this, but the kids get priority. So they'll get all the prime ice times. Wehowever, there's a lot of different programs. I'd say the schedule is probably going to be floating in the first year, although we'll be stating it. I think we have a Monday morning, 9 o'clock, they call it Coffee Club. It's a 50 and over public skate session. The kids will be pretty much right after school, 2 days a week for practices, and then Saturdays will be game day. But there's the bulk of the schedule is public skating. So there's plenty of opportunity morning, noon, and night. There'll be pickup games. We have everything from broom ball to sled hockey that we're working with the foundation here locally to fund $20,000 of equipment for sled hockey. And then of course, figure skating, ice hockey, et cetera. Anything you can do on ice, we plan on doing it here. Curling.
Yeah.
Do you have sharpening facilities there?
We do. It's Yes, we have it. It's actually up and operating, sharpening 400 sets of rental skates right now that that the kids are loving getting to use. So I think we're about 225 skates in, which was the other part of making sure when we make the announcement that we have those all done.
Joel, if it's not proprietary, how much does the Zamboni cost?
$196,000.
Wow.
That's the top of the line. You can get away with 135, 140, but we asked the donors what they wanted to do, and they chose that.
You might have said this earlier in your presentation, but how many gallons of water are used on the ice? I mean, how much does it take?
Thank you for reminding me. So typically on a sand floor or a concrete floor, you'd probably be looking at 25,000 gallons for the first flood. Because of this system, it's probably more like 40,000. But because of the level ice system and it communicating, it's only going to put down what's needed and fill where it's needed. But you're roughly, depending on the activity, 100 to 200 gallons every clean, which would be roughly 8 to 10 a day. So our estimated water usage is probably close to 1 million gallons a year. We've been trying to, and I was actually just talking to somebody at a tech company last night who's looking at some environmental issues. Before we get the RO system, we were actually looking to figure out, could we take the ice that is scraped off and dumped in the Zam pit, could we take it and recycle it? So we started looking at sand separators, going through that whole thing. Our ice maker got here and said, based on the water quality, you're going to want a reverse osmosis system. The problem with an RO system is that what it takes out of the water is probably 20, depending on how good our water is, which our water is pretty good in that area, depending on the well, but it's 25 to 30% of that gets thrown down the drain. So what we're trying to work with this environmentally friendly tech company to say, can you come up with something where we can actually recoup that, and whether we need to add something back to it. We're trying to figure out how to just recycle it. The other thing is the condenser off the back there that sometimes at night you'll see, it looks like smoke coming up from there. That condenser is exhausting about 35,000 to 55,000 gallons of water into the atmosphere every month. And with that, we're talking with the sewer department right now saying that's not going down the drain. So how do we monitor that? So how can we meter it? So we're really trying to work on lowering operating costs as well as being environmentally friendly.
Good. Hey, are you looking at chat, by the way, Joe? There's a chat question. What will you use hockey fan volunteers for?
What will we use hockey fan volunteers for? Well, we do have, we're going to be announcing here in the coming months, we actually have it's a traveling men's hockey league team that it wants to relocate here, and there's some local players. And so we will have competitive hockey games that are, they're not like the kids games, they're full contact and standard hockey. So we will have some volunteer opportunities for probably ushers when we start doing, when we can actually get to capacity and have fans within the building. Right now, we can only have one parent per kid in the building, and making sure that they're spaced out based on the COVID protocols. But right now we can go up to about 25% of the building capacity. So about roughly 150, 200 people at a time. So if anybody is willing to volunteer, we have plenty of stuff we can we can help you with. We actually, one of our Zam drivers who wasn't planning on working there, he was a volunteer from Fallon and just kept showing up to help with lay the floor down, and now he's turned into one of our best Zam drivers. So.
Hey Joel, the lighting is surprisingly bright, and you have very limited number of fixtures. So is there any other lighting that we're not seeing in that picture, or is it solely what you saw in that picture? No,
there's quite a few lights we actually had to do. Let me get you a better picture here. There's probably, I want to say it's 4 across by 1, 2, 3, 4. It's probably, I'm guessing it's 8 across by 10 deep. So there's probably 80 fixtures. But it's part of it is the reflective scrim at the top, and then the ice being white. But these put out quite a bit of lumens, considering they're LEDs. But we had to also We also had to adjust because what we were thinking of it after the fact was based on the glass. We were getting glares and reflections. So we had to take that into account when we were planning this as well. But no, it's primarily because the inside of the building is white, so it works well with the lights. The lights were actually something we stole from Summerlin, from the Knights facility.
Oh, this is Nancy McCormick. I just had a quick question. It sounds like you did
Hi,
work with
Nancy.
a lot of local vendors. And are those hockey jerseys that are behind you there by chance?
No, those are my brother-in-law's 49ers jerseys because I'm a
okay.
Patriots fan. If it wasn't free, it wouldn't be hanging on my wall.
Got it.
Oh,
So I was just curious about local
I'll
vendors
take them
that
from you if you'd like to give them away.
Yeah, whether you were able to get some of the materials, I guess, for the rink from local vendors along the way, and if so, who those vendors might have been.
Sure. So it was interesting because when we looked at the benches for the locker rooms, I said, this is insane. I mean, the cost of certain things was just astronomical, and obviously as a nonprofit, we looked at every number, re-looked at every number. But when we found the benches, it was going to be like $30,000 for the benches, and I said, that just doesn't make sense to me. So we went through, and when you walk through the facility, you'll see a lot of the decisions that we made were based on staff after we were opening. What makes it easier on them from a cleaning perspective, a sanitization perspective, ingress, egress, et cetera. But when it came to the benches, I started looking around with our superintendent at brackets for the benches, and there was a company out of Norwood, Massachusetts that had this bench, and they put the design online. And when we got a quote from them, it was going to be like $13,000 for, or I guess it was $7,000 for 191 brackets. We ended up going to MSM sheet metal here, brought the design in, they fabbed them locally, and it was significantly less. And then we got a couple folks that had a relationship with Trex. We actually got a donation, and they covered the at-cost donation from Trex for us. So it's Trex, gray Trex board in on the benches with the MSM fabricated. So MSM's done a couple different things on our header trench as well. We've used thal fence for fencing off where the header trench is. And then, of course, all of the contractors are all local folks. So RHP Mechanical, United Construction, and then we actually had I think it was Trip Plastics fabricated something that we were missing for the boards for us. And then all the glass, we're trying to find a local company that can handle this 5/8 acrylic glass in case it breaks. But yeah, we used a lot of local.
Great news. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Joel. My name is Robert Purdy. I'm resident of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a hockey dad, a hockey player, and also the secretary of the Nevada Amateur Hockey Association. I'm a board member. I've been following your progress from afar, living here in Las Vegas, and on 2 occasions when visiting my sophomore UNR son, who's a student at UNR, I went by your facility, so I just can't say enough about how nice it looks. Commend you. What a great addition it is to your community. And as a hockey fan, I'm so excited for you, and good job to you and everyone on your board and everyone that volunteered. My question for you is, has anyone skated on it yet?
Yes, we had, because we had to do what's called the green skate. So the ice maker actually wants you to go out and tear it up a little bit, see how it holds, because part of the issue here is depending on, so that's another item I should mention. When the Zamboni goes out, you put hot RO water that's been in a boiler into the Zamboni, because you want the heat kind of filling in, melting it down and filling in the cracks. But when we first went out there, it sounded like a pond cracking. And the reason for that was the weight of the Zamboni, plus it was cold. It was extremely cold. It was at 17 degrees. Really, when you do that, you want it to be closer to 22. So we fixed a couple things, but then when we did the green skate last Friday, we had all the board members go out with their families, and the O'Neill family, who was very generous with their philanthropic efforts on this, go out and skate on it. So we've done that. We've done a couple other things when the ice maker has asked for it. So this week, until we've had the TCO, it's pretty much been staff and board members. We had about 22 kids out there that have all been hired by the rink, part-time employees, skate monitors, supervisors, everybody kind of out there. And yeah, so there's been quite a few people that are within the organization that have been on it, and we'll continue to kind of skate on it. He's almost trying to have us break the ice at this point, just so that he knows where the fail points are.
what are their comments? Are they saying, yeah, this is awesome? And because I had a chance of skating at some new rinks here in Henderson and in Summerlin early on, and it was a thrill. And what are the comments you're getting from people when they're out there?
It's the best ice they've ever skated on. They said it's literally like skating on a lake or skating on a pond. It almost has a hollow effect to it, but it's perfect glass. It really is. It's actually, I know this sounds kind of funny, but and being from New England, it's the fastest ice I've ever skated on. So if you're a slow skater, it makes you look fast.
I'd love that. I can't wait to play up there then.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The restaurants, are they going to be like just glorified snack bars or decent restaurants? And how often do pipes actually break on most skating rinks?
Well, if you ask the gentleman that provided the system, he said he's never had one break, that it would require the something falling from the ceiling to break the pipe. But I don't know. I don't know that answer until it happens. But occasionally the rink up in Salt Lake Tahoe had an issue, I think, after about 6 or 7 years. But the solution that they're using is ammonia based or glycol. And the issue with that is you get corrosion on the pipes. That was part of the reason we went with the aqua ammonia, was so that we didn't have that issue. And they don't have any studies done. Even the refrigeration company out of Nova Scotia was very impressed with this system. So they were installing another one in Ohio, another one in California. We are the first full size sheet of ice that's open. They've done curling rinks and things like that. To answer your question on the restaurants, so we have one concessionaire who, with Roundabout Catering, with Colin Smith and his group, they have funded the equipment for the concessions. Everybody who goes into the facility has a percentage that goes back to the nonprofit, as well as them operating within there. So we have a pro shop in the lobby that's out of Nebraska and St. Louis called Bar Down Sports, and they'll be selling lacrosse equipment during the spring and hockey equipment year round in there, as well as figure skates, tape, et cetera. The only thing that the organization is going to keep is the skate sharpening, because we had just bought a brand new skate sharpener, but they'll be handling all of our jerseys and swag and various different things like that. But everybody is contributing back to the rink. There's no, this is not meant for a business to get rich off of the nonprofit. With the facility over the mezzanine area, that will be Roundabout moving up there into a full restaurant format. So everything that's being done in here right now, the food selection, I think everybody's going to be unbelievably impressed with. If you've ever had Colin's food, everything tastes delicious. He brought in samples to our board meeting to kind of show us what he's going to carry. They will have beer, they will have wine, they have soda fountain machines, and then he'll have your typical snack bar items, but then he's also got pasta and various different things like that. So once he moves upstairs, it'll be a full-blown restaurant, but in the meantime, this will at least give everybody coffee, hot chocolate, et cetera.
Joel, what all does the ice maker do?
Well, so he's actually are you talking about the gentleman, or are you talking about the actual plant?
Gentleman.
Okay. Yeah. So his name's Shane Trilkaski, and he came from Utah, but he had family here in town. And he's actually been asked to go to the Tokyo Olympics, which if we can get somebody trained up, that would be a great PR thing for us. So kind of selfish of me, but his whole thing is start to finish as it relates to the ice, but he also has the facilities. So he's handled all the boards and the backing. He put in all the netting that you can see. I don't know if am I still screen sharing here?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, all the netting that goes around the boards, he put all that up as well with volunteers. So he's kind of everything related to the ice surface and even on the exterior. So he's put all the backer boards in and all the penalty boxes and a lot more than most people probably have the ability to. But then him understanding and reading the instruction manuals for all the systems, which he's very detailed and very good at. But he's kind of a Mr. Fix-It and understanding the system. Our entire staff, from him to the gentleman on the left of the picture when they were putting water down, Mike Harder, who played, I believe it was 16 or 19 years of professional hockey still the top leading goal scorer for Colgate, which is a Division I hockey program, still holds that record. And he was the assistant head hockey coach at Colgate. His wife accepted a position as the CEO of Nutrient Foods out here. And him and I met through Abby about 2 years ago. And then he volunteered his time last year to get the kids programming. We had 61 kids downtown on that little sheet of ice, learning the skate, learning the play. And and then of course our GM came in from the Nashville Predators organization. And then our figure skating director, Joni Malarchuk, the wife of a former NHL goaltender, Clint Malarchuk, who lives down in Minden. She's been teaching the kids for years, power skating, figure skating up at the lake. She came on full time as well. So a very, very experienced staff. We're very fortunate to have them and the work they've done, and especially with all the stuff they've done to get this facility off the ground, which they could probably make an argument as well outside their job description, but everybody's been pitching in, and it should go off without a hitch.
Joel, this is Robert Purdy again. Not to get ahead of the game, but is there any interest or talk of UNR ever establishing a club ice hockey team, either men's or women or both?
Is anybody from UNR on this call before I answer that? So the athletic director didn't even know that they had a team. So UNR has actually had a club team. It's disbanded for quite a few years. I've been keeping in contact with some of their post-grads that are still playing, but they were traveling over to Roseville and practicing over there. And then they had a Facebook page wearing University of Nevada jerseys, and the athletic director didn't know about it. It was a club sport. So I know Mike, our hockey director, obviously having the coaching experience at that level, he's been in contact with them to get them going again. So there is discussion on that as well. We've had everybody from minor league teams to junior teams that have asked about it. But first and foremost, it's a community rink, and the bulk of what keeps this thing alive is free skate and the kids programming. But yeah, we would definitely entertain that, provided that we can, well, especially the college, we definitely can accommodate that.
A quick question. This is Kit here, Joel.
Sure.
First of all, I'm so impressed with what you're doing. We lived in Norway for years, and of course, ice skating is just part of that DNA. What would be the pricing of coming in and the hours?
I always shy away from that comment, but since it was out on Facebook and somebody lambasted me, but so I think right now the pricing for free skate, if you have your own skates, is $10. If you need skates. Okay. If you need skates, then it's $14 total, which is still, we had people arguing with me on Facebook, and I said, you can't even go to a movie for $14. Come on now. So we're trying to keep it affordable and make sure, and a couple things on that. So number one, to address your question on hours of operation. So figure skating starts, I believe it's either 4:30 a.m. or 5. And then again, the schedule is going to be floating the first year, since we are a 24-hour town. And when hospitality starts up, I'm sure a lot of this is going to be in flux. And then the men's league games are late at night. So probably till 11 o'clock, I'd say 11:30. I'm not sure what our permit allows us to do, but whatever that is, that's what we'll be there till that time. And then what was your other question? Did I answer them all?
No, that was fine. Pricing and hours.
Sure. So as it relates to pricing,
so we'll be there, Joel.
Oh, perfect. So as it relates to pricing, the other thing too that we have just launched, we also hired a community development director, Amy Rowan, who and her husband's actually coaching one of the teams as well. But she's working on the scholarship fund that we have. So any kid that shows up that can't afford to play, he or she is getting on the ice. So that was a decision we made right from the beginning. We've already had some people step forward and start to fund that scholarship program. The other thing that we did was, right now we have 270 kids signed up. Our goal for first year was 250. We have a program with the Knights that they have sponsored, and it's called Little NHL. And what it is, it's a 12-week program. You pay $185. You sign up 6 weeks into the program. The first 6 weeks, you're learning how to skate. At week 6, Pure Hockey comes in, measures the kids for the gear, and then the Knights send the gear directly to the home of that individual. So the kids have already received it. Due to COVID, there was kind of an online way of you had to measure yourself. So all the kids have received their gear. So it was 4 times a year for 50 sets of kids' gear. However, we sold the first 50 out in about 4 days. So we called the Knights and asked them for another round right away. They gave it to us. We sold that out in about 3 days. So now we are, now we're going to be doing our own. So we had where we had our jersey handout for the kids that were initially signed up. We actually had a bunch of people come and take gear that we sanitized. So everybody just kind of keeps recycling their gear. So we had a couple kids show up at the rink last week that had no gear, and we were able to outfit them and get them going. So.
Good. Well, that's just awesome. It's a lot like Jewel, like Sky Tavern in the days of, as we were talking about earlier, bussing kids up to Sky Tavern to really reach out to the children that don't have these resources.
Absolutely.
To pay. And so that is awesome. Yeah, so glad to hear that. So
yeah,
glad.
We're trying to work with,
no,
absolutely. We're also trying to work with the Boys and Girls Club on a program with them. We're trying to work with the RTC to figure out a bus stop, although that the closest one is down the street to Coles, but trying to figure out transportation for those people that don't have it to get to us.
Good.
Hey, Joel, John Kilran at Reno Tahoe Winter Games. Good to be with you again, and congratulations to the entire team. I know you guys have been working on it very close to as long as we've been trying to bring the Olympic Games back to the region. So
thanks, John.
Great to see you so successful. And as a skater, anybody who complains about $10 to skate isn't to skate.
I know.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, obviously, the last few years while we've been, biding our time, we've been putting on some elite curling events, World Men's Championship and stuff down in Las Vegas. Robert down in Vegas may know about those things at the Orleans. Noah spoke with you a little bit about them in the past. So we'd be looking forward to speaking with you because we're still alive and kicking through all this stuff and not being able to stage sporting events pretty much the last year or so. But looking forward to speaking with you because obviously curling's taken off. There's the venue now up at Tahoe and some opportunities there. So look forward to speaking with you about those.
We did speak with the gentleman that donated the curling gear because our GM has mixed feelings on curling, but we did put the center dots in and we do have the paint so that we can put them in when curling's going on and take them out because as you know, the different user groups have mixed feelings on that. It's a great training tool, but we do plan on having that. But South Lake Tahoe, we spoke with their donor for that because South Lake's not offering it. So now we just need to figure out how many trucks we need because those stones are not light to bring down.
No, they're 42 pounds each. And for those on the call that are not familiar with what Joel's referring to is you can't curl on skating ice. Those 42-pound stones, the strongest person in the world wouldn't be able to slide them more than about, 30 feet. So think of a golf ball and how it's indented, and it's the opposite. In other words, it's more where the ice is bowed out a little bit so that air pockets can go underneath, and that's what allows the stones to slide the distances that they do. So if a facility is going to do curling as opposed to hockey or figure skating, it's an entirely different ice scrape that's involved, and it takes time. It's time consuming.
And you've got to pebble the ice, which our facilities guy is he's grumbling. And I said, hey, if there's a need, we're doing it. He just kind of walks away. So we will have curling.
Yeah, I look forward to speaking with you about it.
I heard it's very difficult. Never done it, but I'm told it's extremely difficult.
You know what? We've had Brian Krolicki's on this call somewhere too, our chairman of our board, our past lieutenant governor, and we both had a chance to try it at various times as we've been staging the events down in Las Vegas. I would say that the notion that it's like bowling, sometimes in a way, the more you drink, the better you get. The elite athletes of the sport and those who play it, they're phenomenal. The leg strength and balance on the ice that they have to have. Truly have grown a great appreciation for over the course of time. And every time it's on the Olympics, and especially now in the gold medal team that we had in 2018, the U.S. men's team are great friends of ours who have curled at all those events in Las Vegas, and just great people. So it's a real social sport, and people, once they try it or watch it, seem to get hooked or mesmerized by it.
Absolutely.
Lou, man, I just want to commend you on this project. It's an enormous project. What was the total cost, or what will be the total cost, and how long did it actually take from start to finish?
From the construction start to finish, or from when we started the organization?
Whatever.
I'll give you both. We started, my wife will probably tell you it feels like it's been 10 years, but I think it's been 6 total at this point. But from the time that I think we negotiated the lease with the county about 3 years ago, and then we broke ground in April. So we're roughly, it'll roughly be about 10 months when we open. We were supposed to be open before Thanksgiving, whole host of reasons that I won't go into. But the total cost right now, let's see, the building itself was 7.2. And then by the time you add in the system and everything else and all the other FF&E, it's probably total probably 9.5. Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Joel, by the way, you have set a record for the largest attendance of any NCET Tech Wednesday. So,
well, that's fantastic. I figured by now everybody's heard so much about it, they'd probably be sick of it and just not tune in. I thought it was just going to be you and I, Dave.
Well, this was great because, I mean, it was truly a behind the scenes look at all the things that go into making this thing happen. So it was a fascinating presentation, and I think all of us really appreciate it.
Sure. Well, if anybody's interested, we're more than happy. We give tours every day. So if anybody's down in that area, and I'm usually down there quite a few times, but if you want to see the back of house in person, more than happy to show you.
Excellent.
And one of the other things that we're going to do, actually, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks have a 5 workbook series that they've done on ice rinks for STEM education. So we want to figure out how we get that into the schools and start doing field trips on talking about exactly what we just talked about here, and have some educational component around it as well.
Well, Joel, thank you again, and we wish you a tremendous amount of success going forward with this thing. And I suspect a lot of people on this call today will be there.
Thank you. I appreciate the time, and if anybody has any other additional questions afterwards, feel free to reach out.